We are the Lab Doctors. I'm Amanda.
I'm Dorothy.
And I'm Zhao Yong.
We are biomedical researchers who realized we still have a lot to learn about science.
So why not join us on this quest?
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Lab Doctors podcast. So today we are going to talk about something that is deceivingly simple: color.
Oh.
My first question is, what is color, or what do you understand as color?
Signals from light sources that is captured in my retina, that is sent to my brain, that is interpreted in my brain as like other types of signals that generate an image of the light that is visible according to the receptors in my eyes that can detect that wavelength of light.
I was just thinking of the electromagnetic spectrum and just the range that is visible color.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so what y'all described is basically the rundown of the whole episode. But don't tune out yet, because we're going to talk about, spoiler, color blindness and colorblind glasses.
Oh, okay.
Okay, but before we get into all of that, I just want to talk about color first, because not everyone really understands color. Okay, so we'll start with the color of objects, right? So according to the dictionary, color is the property possessed by an object of producing different sensations on the eye as a result of the way it reflects or emits light. Color is not inherent to the object, but rather the surface of an object reflects some colors and absorbs some colors, depending on whatever the color of the object is. So we perceive the reflected colors. So when we see something that is blue, it is blue because it reflects blue light and absorbs everything else. What about black?
It absorbs all the colors, then we don't see any color.
No, I'm just looking at a whole bunch of black things that is reflecting light, and now I'm very confused.
Yes.
Or like shiny black.
So we could get existential about this and think about even transparent objects and everything from refraction to reflection. But we won't be going there today because this episode is about color. But if you want to walk down that trippy road, you can check out this episode about mirrors by Mike's Mike on his pod, Jumping in an Elevator. I'll link that in the description. So you can go on that whole journey of like mirrors and reflective surfaces. Okay, so we've covered the object part of the equation, which is like something that reflects light waves, right?
Yeah.
But the next question that I have for you is, how do we see color? Which I think Zhao Yong already alluded to. So basically we have like the different signals that are transmitted to the brain, right? But do y'all remember what are the cells that are responsible?
Rods and cones.
Oh, okay, now they say, yeah.
Yeah?
Is that the layman term?
Yeah. I mean, it's actually the scientific term as well.
Oh.
So that's exactly right. Rods and cones are light detecting cells, also known as photoreceptor cells. And you are right to say that it's in our retina. So that's this paper thin layer at the back of our eyes. So these photoreceptor cells receive signals, processes them, and transmits the signals to the brain. So there are rods and cones. So do you remember what rods and cones are?
Nope.
I think rods, they take in purple.
Purple is like red and blue.
No, one of them is like low light, one of them is not high light, but
Color.
like normal. Yeah, color light. I can't remember which
You
is
see,
which.
I've definitely read about this before and I've studied
Yeah, we
it,
learned
but
it
I
in-
always forget.
Yeah, secondary
So
school.
this is a
Yeah.
refresher for everybody. So the rods are the highly sensitive photoreceptor cells that help us see in low light conditions, and we see it in shades of grey. So the rods are concentrated in our peripheral vision and are better for motion sensing.
Oh, okay.
Okay, but before we move on to cones, which is the second type of photoreceptor cells, let's rewind a bit to electromagnetic waves.
Yay.
So remember, humans can only see a small portion of the entire electromagnetic spectrum, and this portion is called visible light, from about 400 to 700 nanometers. Okay, so let's move on to cones. So what do y'all know about cones?
Like the kind that used to demarcate a space.
Yeah, I was just thinking of road cones and ice cream cone.
Okay, never mind. Okay, so there are three types of cones. What do you think these cones are? Or should I just say it?
Ice cream cone?
Red, blue, and green.
Exactly. So red, green, and blue.
RGB.
Yeah.
Yes. So the three types of cones are named according to each receptor's sensitivity to light, which roughly corresponds to red, green, and blue wavelengths. And it's very aptly named according to the size of the wavelength it absorbs.
Okay.
So red is the longest of the three, and at an absorption peak of around 565 nanometers. So these are called the long wavelength cones. Then next we have green at 535 nanometers. These are the medium wavelength cones. And finally we have blue, which is the short wavelength cones with an absorption peak of around 445 nanometers. So those are the primary colors.
Are those the primary colors? I thought primary color is yellow.
Primary colors of light.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's different from primary school, what we learned.
Yeah. No idea why also, but just how it is.
So how does our brain perceive every other color? So we have red, green and blue, right? But how do we see yellow then?
Red and green.
Yes.
Huh?
Actually, if you think
I
about
thought it's
it,
green minus blue.
It's something to do with the light rays are not mixing. It's just that they are in such close proximity that our eyes can't really differentiate
Right.
it as individual red light or individual green light. So then your brain just sees it as yellow.
yes, exactly. So yellow, for example, is when we can see an object reflecting both red and green light waves. So the red and green cones get activated and send signals to your brains to process it as yellow. So how do we see every other color and every other shade of color? So the human eye actually contains an estimated 4.5 to 6 million cones, and our brain is tricked into seeing millions of colors by carefully adding together the right combinations of these three wavelengths. So maybe if you think about true yellow is like when red and green are equal.
Yeah.
But what does true yellow even mean? We won't go into that existential crisis about language and like what humans assign to different things. But that's a very simplistic way of thinking about it.
Okay.
Let's go into what actually sparked this topic, color blindness. So what do you guys know about color blindness, or why do you think this condition occurs?
They don't have a particular cone, right? Or is it?
A few cones.
Yeah. They have less cones.
Okay, so it's kind of that, but it's not really so much the loss of cones all the time. Sometimes the cones could be dysfunctional. Okay, so each type of cone cells, so we remember we have long, medium and short, have several kinds of pigments known as photopigments. If your cones have all the photopigments, your eyes can see all the possible colors. But with color blindness, the photopigments in these cones may be dysfunctional or missing.
Okay.
So the most common type of color blindness is red-green color blindness, meaning there is difficulty distinguishing shades of red and green. This is going to get a bit nerdy, but humor me. Let's go into etymology because it always gets me a bit excited. But if you've realized, I've tried to say the colors and cone types in order. So red coming first and then green and then blue. So red corresponds with the long wavelength cones, which we've already talked about. So the conditions when the red cones are either dysfunctional or missing are known as protanomaly or protanopia. So proto meaning original and anomaly meaning deviation from normal.
Okay.
So protanomaly is the condition where the long wavelength cones are present but dysfunctional. So these red cones detect wavelengths that are too low or green. So your eye should be receiving the red signal.
Okay.
But then like it's detecting it as a lower wavelength, so closer to green.
Okay.
So people with protanomaly generally see reds as greener. Okay, so protanopia, which is, again, we have proto as the prefix, which is original, which is the first color, red.
Okay.
And opia, which is a suffix for disorder of the eye. So protanopia occurs when the long wavelength cones are missing, therefore causing troubles differentiating red or green.
So then what do you see? Black?
Yeah, okay, so if you have complete color blindness, which is very rare, where all the cones don't work, this is called rod monochromacy, means like only your rod cells are working, right? You see
Grayscale.
the world in black, white and grey.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so sad.
So the other type of like complete color blindness is cone monochromacy. So like you only have one cone type that is working.
Okay.
So you either have red and then green and blue is missing, or like so on and so forth. So a lot of the colors we see is because we can distinguish between different colors. That's why it's also considered complete color blindness when you only have one type of cone cell working.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you lose that ability to distinguish, then even though you only have like blue cones working, you might not be able to understand what color truly is. Okay, so green cones are like the second color that I keep saying. So deuteranomaly, deuter being the prefix for second, is when your green cones are dysfunctional, and deuteranopia is when your green cones are missing. So rounding that out is tri, which is the prefix for 3. So tritonomaly and tritonopia, which occurs when either the short wavelength cones or the blue cones are dysfunctional or missing respectively. But I'll link the Healthline article, which is pretty self-explanatory, but basically they have different versions of the same image, better explaining visually what people see.
Yeah, so actually my question is, for all of us who are considered like normal vision, right? Do we see the exact same shade of colours?
No. Okay, so there are like 3 tests for color blindness, which doesn't really answer your question, but it helps to like put you into groups of like how colorblind you are.
Okay.
No, and then it can tell you like what colorblind people cannot distinguish between. The different combinations of colors will tell you which kind of color blindness you are.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, but if I'm not even... Yeah, the dot one. But if I'm not even colorblind, so like, you know, like for example, when we do research, sometimes we look at pH paper and they have like different shades of colors. Like we can only say it's this particular pH because we know it's this color, but like it might be different for all of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why color is a construct.
Do you want to have your mind blown even more?
Oh, here we go.
When you say something is blue, it's actually not blue because it's reflecting all the blue light. So
it's still blue lah.
No, it's not blue.
Okay, it's everything but blue.
Yeah.
Okay, that dot test is called a color plate test. So like whether you can see the number or letter within like a circle with a lot of dots.
Yes.
So that's like a very, I would say, simple way of testing like color blindness, what kind of color blindness and how severe your color blindness is. Okay, but then there are other kinds of tests like the hue test. So like seeing the different hues of colors and whether you can arrange it.
Right.
So like say from like a very dark blue to like different shades of like blues. So if you can't like distinguish between the hues, it might signify that you have a form of color blindness.
Okay.
And then the last one is called an anemaloscope test. Basically, it's this like machine where it will shine 2 lights and then you look into the eyepiece and then you're supposed to match the brightness of the 2 lights. If you can match the brightness of the 2 lights, then you probably aren't colorblind. But if you can't match the brightness of the 2 lights, you may be colorblind.
All right.
So have you ever watched those colorblind glasses videos?
Yeah, and then people cry.
They cry.
Quite
Oh yeah, they do.
Yeah.
What do y'all feel about that?
I feel privileged because I'm like, I take for granted everything that I can see.
Oh, damn.
Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, I always get very emotional in the moment when I watch it. But do you guys feel skeptical? Because I get skeptical. Because if everything is a spectrum and if there are so many different types of color blindness, how can like one type of glasses?
Are there not many different types of glasses?
Yeah, I thought it was more than one type of glasses.
No.
Huh? Only one?
So, the company that manufactures these glasses is called EnChroma, and they originally created these glasses for doctors to use during laser surgery procedures.
Okay.
So, the lenses are coated with a special material that selectively filter out certain wavelengths of light. Because these glasses that they've developed so far only work for people who have all 3 cones, and it can't be missing. It has to be dysfunctional.
Right.
Because they have all 3, right?
Yeah.
So, specifically, it only works for people who have partial red-green color blindness. So that's protanomaly or deuteranomaly, which is when either your red cones are dysfunctional or your green cones are dysfunctional.
Okay.
So with these subsets of people, the problem is that the cones overlap. Remember we were talking about the red cones being dysfunctional, meaning like it detects lower wavelength. So it detects more green.
Okay.
Or if your green cones are dysfunctional, it detects longer wavelengths, which is more red. So the enchromaglasses uses multi-notch filtering to absorb the overlapping wavelengths, leaving just the wavelengths that a colorblind person's eyes are able to differentiate.
So it's addition by subtraction.
Yeah. So basically what these glasses does is it makes red and green more different. So then you can...
Okay.
helps you see color.
Yeah.
Theoretically, it does work for some people. But that's the thing. What if your cones overlap too much? The glasses won't be able to filter the exact range of wavelengths that trigger both cones.
Okay.
Furthermore, these glasses also do not benefit people with blue, yellow, or complete color blindness. So, because I did go down a rabbit hole of studies, basically more research needs to be done. And speaking of whether it can really correct and like help you on the driver's test, one study actually gave colorblind people the glasses and let them do the color plate test, and they found that there was no significant difference with the glasses. So I think it's because of the different complexities of color blindness being like, it has to be a specific type of color blindness and you have to fit within a specific range.
So it's confounded by people who don't fit that specific range.
Yes. So EnChroma does have like a colorblind test that you can do online, and they also like recommend consultations to see whether EnChroma will work for you.
But I guess they're still touched by all the videos, maybe because they can just see more.
Yes, and even when people who are not colorblind put on the glasses, they'll just see the primary colors more vividly, apparently.
Okay.
Actually, you don't need glasses nowadays, got app
Yes.
I don't know how accurate the app is, but my younger brother was showing me and he's like, yeah, this is what you will see if you are colorblind. So this is what I see and then this is what you see. And I'll be like, oh, okay, noted. That's kind of sad. You can't see certain colors.
Yeah, so besides colorblind glasses, they have apps. Like, so the most common example people use are like the red and green peppers, like capsicums, you know. So they take a picture and then they can like distinguish red and green.
Right.
So there's also colorblind contact lens, where you wear the lens in one eye that is like maybe deeply tinted with red to block out a lot of the green light. So the green objects look darker. So when you compare it with the other eye, it's easier to tell the difference between green and red. So apps and colorblind contact lenses don't really correct color vision, but it just helps with perception.
Okay.
This is so tiring for colorblind people.
Yes. Sorry, I'm very frustrated about this. But I just want to give credit where credit is due. EnChroma is helping people because 2/3 of all colorblind people are red-green colorblind.
Okay.
And it's the one that is believed to be mostly determined by the genes. So in all, basically I just want to say, EnChroma, thanks, I guess. I'm sorry for shitting on your glasses for a bit, but...
Thanks, EnChroma. And as usual, subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Spotify. A like and a comment would really help us out.
You can also follow us on our social media, Instagram, Twitter or Facebook, and feel free to DM us any questions.
Alternatively, you can email us at thelabdoctors@gmail.com. We'll post all the links for everything that we talked about in the show notes, so check that out. Thank you.
Bye.